Yo, it's your boy GT here from the Gangster Times. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my
Guys, I've
channel.
got a story coming in from up north, up Lancashire ways, a story that I previously reported on. So the man accused of firing the bullets which killed a 19-year-old law student has pleaded guilty to an unlawful killing. A charge of the manslaughter of Aya Hachem was put to Zamir Raja on Friday morning, to which the hired hitman pleaded guilty. However, the trial is set to continue as the prosecution pursue a murder charge against him. It is the first time that the 33-year-old has admitted having any involvement in the crime, which took place on May the 17th last year on King Street in Blackburn. 7 others also stand trial accused of the murder of Aya and the attempted murder of Pasha Khan, who the prosecution say the bullet was intended for. Speaking to the court after Raja pleaded guilty to the offence of manslaughter, Prosecutor Nicholas Johnson QC said, "As your lordship knows, that plea is not acceptable to the Crown, and we propose to continue against Mr. Raja." The judge, the Honourable Mr. Justice Mark Turner, then addressed the jury saying, by way of brief explanation, the position of the prosecution is that they continue to assert that Mr. Raja is guilty of murder. As you have heard, he has pleaded guilty to manslaughter, but because the prosecution wished to proceed on the murder charge, as they are entitled to elect, the trial will continue. On Monday, Raja gave evidence in court, giving his account of what he was doing before, after and during the shooting. Abu Bakr Satya, the man it is alleged sourced the vehicle that was used in the shooting, has also been given evidence this week. It is the prosecution's case that businessman Feroz Suleiman arranged the execution of work rival Pasha Khan in broad daylight and watched on as Aya was killed instead. A Toyota Avensis, driven by Anthony Ennis with the alleged hitman Zamir Raja on board, drove past Quickshine Tyres on 3 occasions shortly before the fatal fourth journey, the court heard. Footage from CCTV cameras captured Suleiman stood outside his business with a ringside seat to the shooting he had arranged, so the business that he owned, a tyre company, was next door. The first shot hit the front window of Quickshine, and the second was let off as Miss Hashim walked by. The prosecutor said the bullet, rather than hitting the intended target, hit her. The vehicle made off, and Judy Chapman, who's 26, and her boyfriend, Uthman Satya, who was 29, were waiting to transport the Manchester assassins away from the scene at a car park in nearby Wellington Road. Early before the shooting, Kashif Manzoor said the Crown made sure the Avensis was ready for the assassins, as he jump-started the vehicle bought for just £300 by Uthman Satya's brother, Abu Bakr Satya, a week earlier. Ayaz Hussain, described as Suleiman's right-hand man, was said to have acted as an intermediary with the alleged gunman Raja. Mr. Johnson said all 8 accused played an important and significant part. Suleiman of Blackburn, Raja of Stretford, Ennis of Parkington, Manzoor of Blackburn, Hussain of Blackburn, Abu Bakr Satya of Blackburn, Uthman Satya and Chapman of Great Horwood all deny murder. The defendants have also pleaded not guilty to the attempted murder of Mr. Pasha Khan. So that's a new story coming in from Lancashire, where a hitman has admitted the unlawful killing of Blackburn teenager Aya Hachem. A gang stole more than 130 vehicles worth upwards of £3 million from London and the home counties before dismantling them and shipping the parts to Lithuania. Met police officers found that some of the vehicles, many of which were luxury SUVs, were made to look more legitimate through the process known as ringing. The SUVs had keyless entry or start systems, enabling the gang members to use special equipment to drive off without needing the keys in a method called relay station attack. Back in 2019, the Met carried out searches at properties in Hornchurch and Purfleet, where they found thousands of pounds in cash, a bank card linked to money laundering, and 4 stolen cars which had been rung. 3 of the men were arrested following the searches, while another was arrested after being stopped in a ringer. They were released under investigation but were arrested again and charged in 2019 when a dismantling site was found in Essex. Detective Inspector P. Ellis, who led the investigation, said this was a sophisticated and well-organised criminal enterprise. Extensive use was made of false identities of both vehicles in the gang, forged documents and multiple bank accounts by those controlling the activity in an effort to evade detection. Evidence of over 130 vehicles stolen by the gang was presented to the court, but the true figure is undoubtedly much higher. This case illustrates the Met's ongoing work to tackle vehicle theft and organised crime. 6 men, all who were from Lithuania, were sentenced at Crown Court. The total jail time for the gang amounts to more than 35 years. Adolis Griganus, 29, of Essex, was sentenced to 7 years and 3 months imprisonment after being found guilty of conspiracy to convert criminal property and conspiracy to steal. Andreas Stanelka, who's from East London, was sentenced on the same day to 7 years and 6 months imprisonment after being found guilty of the same crimes. The 4 other men received their sentences at an earlier date. So the gang's leader, Karolis Stanevicius, who's 36, from Rainham, was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment after pleading guilty to conspiracy to convert criminal property. Rimgados Magmodovis, who's 46, of Essex, was sentenced on December the 21st to 6 years and 9 months imprisonment after pleading guilty to the same crime. Darius Mitralevicius, who's 44, was sentenced on September the 24th last year to 5 years and 5 months imprisonment after pleading guilty to conspiracy to convert criminal property as well. Another man whose details were not published was sentenced to 27 months imprisonment after pleading guilty to conspiracy to steal. In another news story coming from the northwest, and a 17-year-old has been arrested in connection with a stabbing in Altrincham. The officers were called around 4:30 on Tuesday the 15th of June to a park close to Whitlow Avenue in Altrincham to a report that a male had been stabbed. Emergency services attended and inquiries established a man in his 20s had been stabbed by another male. He was taken to hospital where he remains in a critical but stable condition. The offender fled before he was subsequently pursued to a property on Craven Drive by a group of around 10 people. He then subsequently fled from this location. However, police have confirmed that a 17-year-old male has since been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, and he remains in custody for questioning. An investigation remains ongoing and officers continue to appeal for information. A male and a female arrested on suspicion of a range of offences, including public disorder and conspiracy to commit assault, have been released on bail. A female arrested on suspicion of assault has been released under investigation. And in another story coming from London, a man has been convicted of manslaughter following a retrial. Seri Pelik of Brentford was convicted of the manslaughter of Stepan Sulcic, who was 40 years old, of Greenford. So an initial trial in February 2020 failed to reach a verdict. An investigation was launched after police were called on Sunday the 16th of June 2019 to a North London hospital where Stepan Sulcic had been taken by London Ambulance Service suffering from a head injury. Sadly, he died 2 days later, having never regained consciousness. A post-mortem examination on June the 21st at Fulham Mortuary confirmed the cause of death was the result of blunt trauma to the head. An investigation was launched and established that both Seri Pelik and Stepan had spent the evening of the 16th of June at a Ukrainian social club on Holland Park Avenue. They did not know each other prior to that night. Witness accounts state that the two were both Ukrainian, left together in the early hours of the morning after Pelik had agreed to help Stepan find a way to get to his home in Greenford. As they walked to find a taxi in Holland Park Avenue, a disagreement started that escalated with the defendant punching Stepan in the face at least once, causing him to fall to the ground. Pelik did not call an ambulance, and as passers-by began to gather, he claimed that Stepan had fallen over having drunk too much. He maintained his pretense for about an hour before a taxi was called to take Stepan home. Pelik also travelled in the taxi with Stepan before leaving him with Stepan's housemate. When the police spoke to Pelik during the early stages of the investigation, he denied all knowledge of the events that had caused the fatal bleed to the brain. Pelik was subsequently arrested on Tuesday the 20th of June on suspicion of murder. He answered no comment to questions and interviews before providing a statement indicating that he acted in self-defense. However, he was charged and was subsequently convicted of Stepan's manslaughter. Detective Inspector Maria Green, a homicide detective from the Met Specialist Crime, said the death of Stepan Sulcic was tragic, unnecessary and wholly avoidable. All he wanted to do was get home after spending the evening socialising with friends. Instead, Seri Pelik's violent actions have robbed a wife of a husband and 2 children of their father. I hope that this conviction has brought some justice for Stepan and his family, but of course, it will never bring him back. So there's a few stories for you this Saturday evening. Let me know what you guys think. It's your boy GC. Keep it locked, keep it real.